Sadhana Chatushtaya Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guratneti Murtideta Vibhagine Vyoma Vakyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtiya Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadgurum Pranatosmyam.
From the first Guru, pure existence consciousness, down to Shankaracharya in the middle, and my teacher at the end, I prostrate to the Guru-disciple tradition. Ishvara, my Guru, is beyond form and duality, beyond space in the body. I bow to Ishvara in the form of Dakshinamurti. The import of all Vedanta texts is beyond the known and the unknown. It is limitless bliss and unborn light. I worship that reality as my Guru. We have done our invocation, our first verse of Tattva Bodha, and let's chant it, and then we will begin the explanation. Vasudevendra yogindram natva jnana pradam gurum mumukshunam hitarthaya tattva bodho bhidiyate. So before Tattva Bodha is expounded, this is the text that we're doing, to both the teacher and the student. So this means both the teacher and the student are exactly in the same place because we're both depending on the Tattva Bodha text. And before we do so, we both have to make each other a prepared instrument. So this means from my standpoint, or from Shankara's standpoint, the author has to make oneself a receiving instrument, and also the reader or the listener also has to become a receiving instrument. And how do we do this? We do this by invoking the Lord. So the purpose of the Mangala Charana, as we've just done now, is to invoke the Lord. And we discussed last session why, because often we will stand in our own way and we will carry worldly events into the class, into our minds, and that will color in everything we're saying. So it will contaminate the teachings, and also our minds will be elsewhere. So this means that, we'll daydream, and then the teaching will keep going, and we'll miss something important. And also, just like before a job interview, what do? We prepare ourselves, right? So nobody just goes to it, because we know how important the job interview is, right? So this means if I know that something is important, I prepare. That's just a natural response. So in the same way, if I know something like this, a text which is meant to establish clarity is so important, then we cannot go without preparation, because our minds is just not that sophisticated. So we have to surrender our own what we know, our own past, our own experiences, and put them aside for a while so that the teaching can take place. Yeah, just like how one surrenders all of their arrogance and all of their superiority, inferiority in front of an employer, and they just say, I'm here to let you know what I can do for you, right? They put their stuff aside. They have to, because otherwise they won't get hired. And again, how does one become an instrument for the Lord? The answer is by making oneself a deserving instrument. A deserving instrument means by putting aside my memories and my past conclusions and the present events that are going on in the family or with friends or with anyone. So this means one has to surrender one's capacity to the ultimate cause, because we have talked about that the ultimate cause is, we haven't talked about what the word cause is right now, so we will speak what the cause is. But for now we'll just say the Lord. And he also says, Jnanam pradam gurum. Then the Lord, once I've surrendered myself from both the teacher and the student standpoint, then the Lord can function through the expounder. So the expounder here is the Guru. Okay, in this case, for Shankaracharya, the Guru is Krishna. So once Shankaracharya surrenders, then Acharya can benefit the student. So this means before Shankaracharya wrote the book, he thought, how can I benefit the student? I can only do that by putting aside my own knowledge about what I already know. So even someone so smart like Shankaracharya, so sophisticated, he too has to put aside his own past knowledge in order to benefit the student, the reader of the book. Because every time we write something or do something, it's always fresh, it's always new. So we cannot now take the past and then put it into the present and then base the present on what? The past. So whenever we do that, that work that we have made, which arose from the present, does not have much benefit for the reader. So this means I have to put the past away. Then we ask, is there any agenda in the tradition, the Acharya or the Guru or Shankaracharya, is there any agenda teaching this? The answer is no, because the truth is every teacher, every Guru has benefited from their own Acharya. This means their own Acharya went through great lengths to show them this knowledge, to reveal what needs to be revealed, to bring clarity. And it is such a huge responsibility that once the knowledge takes place, then the Shishya has no choice, the student has no choice but to just be so grateful that they say, well, how do I repay something that is far greater than anything that the world can give me? Because the world cannot give me anything more than infinity itself. So how do I repay this back? And the only way is usually either to, if one does not choose to be the expounder, like Shankaracharya, they just live in a very simple life, or the other is to continue this selfless parampara, this selfless tradition of teaching, because that is the only way one can really repay this. There's no other way we can deliver anything else. Therefore, Vedanta is or becomes a selfless parampara. This means whoever teaches Vedanta, there's absolutely no agenda behind it. Shankaracharya was not looking to write the book to be famous and then have his name promoted. It is entirely because I'm so grateful for the knowledge having taken place that I do not know what to do or how to express my gratitude other than to pass on to the next person to benefit. What happens after the invocation? So we have now done the invocation. The answer is the expounder, that means Shankaracharya, or the author of the book, qualifies the student through what we used last time. Remember, it starts with Anu. Tell me, please. Anubandha Chatushtaya. Okay, so Anubandha Chatushtaya. So this is why I need you to write these notes down, because I'm going to continue delivering these words and they're going to keep building up. So I need you to absolutely be on top of it. So the expounder qualifies the student through a process called Anubandha Chatushtaya. Repeat after me. Anubandha Chatushtaya. Okay. And this means fourfold considerations or fourfold qualifications. And what are these qualifications for? The purpose is, does anyone remember?
Preparation.
Good. No, it's not moksha. We're not there yet. Preparation, but for what specifically? Should I pursue this book or not? What does this book have? Does this book have the knowledge which can help me? Or is what I'm seeking contained in this book? And does this book have a means for answering what I'm seeking? So Anubandha Chatushtaya is fourfold qualifications that a person goes through to determine if I should read this book or I should read something else, or I should go elsewhere. So this is a very beginning stage, because you want to save yourself time, right? You don't want to go halfway into the book and go, I'm bored, right? There's nothing in this book for me.
So is that the Vishaya part, or is that the adhikari part?
Now we will talk about the what are these
okay.
fourfold qualifications, considerations to remember?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Adhikara.
Adhikari.
Adhikari, sorry.
Okay, and what's adhikari? Does
It's the
anyone?
eligibility of the person's mind to take it in, or the person to actually be there to have the knowledge.
The ability of the person, yeah. Okay, another name?
The urge to seek liberation.
Huh?
The urge to seek liberation.
Okay, good.
No.
Yeah, there are mumukshu, sure. Who is okay, but we're still not at this level.
Yeah, it's not at a higher level. By
Yeah,
Who's it for?
What's the topic of the book?
good,
Who's the audience?
excellent,
And what are the benefits?
much better,
And something else.
much better. So adhikari at this point is who is a deserving candidate, who is the right person for this book, right? And excellent, Lloyd, how you brought that up. Who is the eligible person for this book? Good. Now you can say answer mumukshu because it says mumukshu up there on the second line, first word. So this, what is mumukshu? One who is deserving of liberation. So once the adhikari sees, okay, so I am a deserving candidate because I am looking for deserving candidate. That means I deserve on the basis of my desire to read this book. This means this book was written for me. I deserve this book because on the basis of my desire. Okay. Now, next one is Vishaya. Vishaya, remember?
The topic
That's
of
the,
matter.
the knowledge of reality.
Okay. We're not there yet, so
Okay.
so what is the subject matter of this book? I need to know the subject. And this subject matter connects the adhikari to his or her goal, right? So this means the topic matter is Tattva Bodha, knowledge of reality. And so in other words, the Vishaya is that topic, and the adhikari is a mumukshu, and therefore this knowledge reveals reality because the person is not apart from this reality that is being revealed. And then the next one was prayojanam. Prayojanam means
the result of the knowledge.
good. What is the end? What is the final outcome of this book? So in one answer, because the mumukshu, the one desirous of liberation, the answer is within that word, moksha. So I need to know the goal. So this means, so what if Vishaya, if the subject matter is knowledge of reality? So what, right? We've heard books like that before. But once the prayojanam comes in, then it answers the very crucial question, and that is, well, what is the actual, what am I getting out of this book when I go through it?
The point of the knowledge of reality.
Right, exactly. And we're just going to read about reality, particles, and subatomic particles, and air. Okay, so what? Great, but I've got, life to live. So how is this going to transform? Now, the person, the adhikari, now asks, so what? Okay, now that so what is answered through sambandha, which means the relationship. So the sambandha now establishes the relationship between the adhikari and his or her want. So sambandha answers, what is the connection between what you want and this book? So I need to know that clearly. In other words, it shows the relationship between the
Desire for
what I want, between my desire and between the book's ability to deliver that desire. It shows it clearly. Here's the relationship. This way, Tattva Bodha, once it's answered through Sambandha, is now connected to the adhikari's want. So this means before the book was just a book, but now the book is connected to my want. Now the book becomes precious. Now it becomes something that I'm going to want to study. So that's Sambandha. Next topic, what is Shastra?
truth.
Go back to the session 2. Shastra, we said, is it partial text or complete text?
Shastra is complete text.
Which one?
Total text.
Total, complete text. So in one word, what is Shastra? Complete text. Now when I say complete text, what am I including? 3 texts, what are they?
Bhagavad Gita,
Yeah.
Upanishads,
And Brahma Sutra. So whenever I say Shastra, I'm including these 3 texts. So these 3 texts are complete of themselves. They do not need anything else to complete them. And what is Prakarana Grantha? Prakarana Grantha. So Grantha means
Not.
text. Prakarana means topical. So what is Prakarana Grantha?
topical text.
Yeah, so it's a text that deals with a specific topic. And it covers parts of Shastra. It doesn't cover the entire Shastra, because Shastras are big texts. But Prakarana Grantha are very specific, the most important parts of the text. However, what's important is the goal of the Prakarana Grantha and the Shastra Grantha are identical. So we cannot now say that the Prakarana Grantha is only topical, but it doesn't talk about moksha. Their goal is one. That means whether one goes through the Shastra or through the Prakarana Grantha, the end result is exactly the same. Yeah. Now one said, why is one shorter and one's bigger? Because the Shastra has so much more to life. It includes how to live in family and emotions and just the usual day-to-day activities, whereas Tattva Bodha is specifically on the self. So it's a very specific topic. So we'll do a summary of Prakarana Grantha. There's 3 parts of Prakarana Grantha. The first, if you remember, give me some features of Prakarana Grantha.
Bhagavad Gita.
Not the Shastra.
No, that's Shastra
Yeah,
Grantha.
Shastra.
Okay?
Uh,
Based on what you've just heard,
Tattva Bodha,
okay, Tattva Bodha, and it is part of
of the Shastra.
Shastra. That's one feature. It gives the same result as
Shastra.
Shastra. We're supposed to say that also because I explained that. And it prepares you for the study of
Self.
Bhagavad Gita,
Gita.
Brahma Sutra, and the Upanishads. It prepares you. What is the topic of Tattva Bodha text? What exactly does it talk about? And it defines the Shastric terminology. So, for example, you cannot study any big topic unless you first know the terms. Is that your experience? For example, suppose that this is a maths class, and all we know as general society is addition, subtraction, and we'll just stop there. And then I say, well, that's great, but today we're going to learn about quadratic forms, Cauchy's theorem, elliptic integrals. We're also going to learn about positive integers, prime numbers, continued fractions. Who's excited, right?
Right, it is.
Give me more.
Okay, numerators, denominators, right? All of these terms. I mean, prime numbers is probably something that you probably sort of know, but still, what is a prime number? So this means nothing happens until I first define these terms, and then you're paying attention. Otherwise, you're just like, oh no, now you instantly switch off the moment I say Cauchy's theorem or elliptic integrals or continued fractions or so on. So Tattva Bodha thus establishes terminology that by the time we go into Shastra, which contains the 3 texts, I'm not going to switch off. I'm not going to say, what is this talking about? It doesn't make sense. Let me move on to something more interesting.
So really, we should have done this before we started the Tuesday.
Technically, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tattva Bodha goes before Bhagavad Gita.
And usually why is Bhaja Govindam before that?
Well, really?
Because that's also Adi Chankra.
Okay. However, in the traditional Vedanta, we will first always start with the Tattva Bodha, and Bhagavad Gita will go last.
But then if you'd advertised that you were doing the Tattva Bodha, I wouldn't have come. It's only because she was the Bhagavad Gita that I turned up.
Well, you'll have a better grip of understanding now with the Gita, what we're studying anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, the understanding will be very different. So if you think that you know the Bhagavad Gita, then wait for the Tattva Bodha. So even though it's a simple text, it is actually extremely sophisticated and precise in its terminology. And I'm going to say some things that we've not heard in the Bhagavad Gita before. So we cannot say, I've got through the Bhagavad Gita, I know Tattva Bodha. It doesn't work like that in Vedanta. There's always more to know. And also we spoke of two important figures in Vedanta. These two important people that we remember.
Rishis,
Vasudeva.
Seers,
Number one starts with V.
Vasudeva.
Vyasti,
Vasudeva is Krishna.
Vyasti,
Veda,
Vyasa.
Veda, Vyasa. And second is
Shankara.
Adi Shankara. So these two are the two important figures in the tradition. And some features of Veda Vyasa are, he has compiled what?
Bhagavad Gita.
No, I said compiled, I did not say right. He has compiled, brought together the Upanishads. He has authored what? Okay, now what's the Upanishads called? Starts with the sh?
Shastra.
No, Shastra is the three texts.
Yeah.
Shruti, which means? Heard. In other words, it's been revealed. So, he compiled that which was revealed by the who? By the rishis. In other words, the rishis means what?
Seers.
The seers of what?
True.
The seers of truth, but the seers specifically of mantras. Okay, so they were spread in many different places, and he compiled them into the what we call the Shruti Prasthana. What does Prasthana mean? That which?
Means of knowledge.
No, that's pramana. Prasthana, that which takes me, that which moves me from one to the other, that which enables me to walk, to attain. So if I now say Shruti Prasthana, what does this mean? If Shruti is the highest knowledge and Prasthana is that which enables me to walk, then how would you now put these words together?
Able to go forward.
Yeah, but the Shruti reveals what?
The way, the guide, the way.
Well, Shruti is the highest knowledge. It reveals the self. It reveals who am I and who am I not. So if we say Shruti Prasthana, we're talking about self-knowledge, which enables me to, well, actually, that knowledge which enables me to recognize Atman, to discover the self. Why enables me? Because Prasthana means that which enables me. Why the self? Because Shruti is what reveals the highest knowledge. Okay. So Vyasa is involved in Shruti Prasthana. That means he compiled the Vedas. He authored, which is what? Prasthana. Starts with S. Smriti Prasthana, which means I take something, a historical moment, and I look at it, and I write a prasthana. I reflect. And what does reflected mean? I took what has been heard, I took the Upanishads, and in the light of the Upanishads, I have authored a certain piece, a certain historical moment in the light of what has been heard. So when you read the Bhagavad Gita, what are we reading? We're reading a historical event, a historical moment, in the light of the Upanishads. So suppose that you witness some story or some event in your life, and then instead of just writing down what happened, instead you go, how can I look at this in the light of all of the Upanishads, and then I bring that knowledge over into my descriptions. So that when the person reads this as a narrative between Krishna and Arjuna, then they will benefit through the knowledge contained in the Upanishads. And he also wrote another text called Brahma Sutra, whose purpose is to... What's the purpose of Brahma?
To answer more depth of the questions about the actual Shastra.
Good, okay. In other words, it's a, what kind of a prasthana? Nyaya prasthana, which means nyaya, which means logic. So in other words, some contradictions inside the Upanishads are there for those highly intellectual, those who will see any statement and they will go, well, I see a flaw in this. Like they're very smart. And then they will try to break the Upanishads down. And then what Vedavyasa did was he took all of these possible ways to contradict the statements of not two-ness of Advaita, and he provided pure, great, excellent logic, which when this intellectual person reads, they go, okay, now I understand how this statement is actually true. For example, in the Gita, I mentioned the statement, how do you recognize that the Atman is one and the same in all beings? And if you're smarter, if you thought about it, I did not give you the full logic because you can easily break down the logic that I gave you. Because just to say that both of us can see, one thing, and then that thing leaves, and then another thing comes, and that thing leaves, that's not good enough, right? Because that just means what? That the self is free from thoughts from both of us. But now Sankhya philosophy can come in and say, yeah, but that doesn't say anything. I can still have my own unique awareness, and you can still have your own unique awareness. And it just happens to be free of thoughts. But it still doesn't prove that our awarenesses are one and the same. You see? Now I can keep going with more logics to break that down. But you're supposed to look at this. Okay, now let's get into session 3. So that was revision that we've done. So we begin session 3 from now on. Tattva Bodha teaching style contains 2 steps. The first step is called Vastu Sangraha Vakya. Vastu Sangraha Vakya. If you heard Mahavakya, it means statement, a great statement. Vastu means everything, and Sangraha means collected. So this means everything has been a statement which collects all of the important points and it puts it into one place. This means if you look at 2 pages of knowledge, excellent knowledge, and you look at what would be the essence of these 2 pages, and then you just extract the most essential words, the most essential ideas, and you put them into one single statement, into one single vakya. So what does this mean? A statement. What is a Vastu Sangraha Vakya? A statement which collects all of the main points and gathers them into one single place. For example, this would be a Vastu Sangraha Vakya. Right? And then we would now step 2, once we have this statement, we would then ask, what is this? 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 Every single word will be covered. You understand? So 2 steps. 1, it takes the absolute essentials out of a huge section, a portion of the Shastra, and puts a one single statement called Vastu Sangraha Vakya. And then it says, what is Vasudevendra, what is Yogindra, what is Natwa, what is Jnana Pradam, what is Guru, etc. So not a single statement gets missed out. So this way the student looks at a verse and goes, I know exactly what it means. That way nothing's missed out. Let's go into our next verse, where we will now go into the qualifications that the student requires to pursue Tattva Bodha. Remember, we only talked about what is the qualifications to open the book. Now we have to talk about what is the qualifications of the adhikari. So sure, an adhikari may be mumukshu, may be desirous of liberation, but what does that mean? It's too general. How do I know whether I am desirous of liberation? How do I know if I'm qualified to pursue liberation? You see the importance of that? So now the adhikari is going to be focused upon, and we will say, okay, you want liberation? Let's see if you really have these specific traits which are absolutely essential to pursue this book and understand the whole reality.
Sorry, Andre. You see, Tattva Bodha has got 2 steps.
And what?
Tattva Bodha
Yeah.
has got 2 steps, yeah? One is the Vastu Sangraha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Vakya.
what's the other one?
Then we take every word in that Vastu Sangraha Vakya and we analyze it. What does this mean? What does this mean? Etc. Together. Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampannadhikarinam moksha sadhana bhutam Tattva Viveka prakaram vakshyamaha. So this is introduction into the fourfold qualifications of an adhikari. That means what is an adhikari required to have to pursue moksha. So vakshyamaha, and the first one is we shall explain. The book shall explain. So Shankaracharya is saying to us, I shall explain. Explain what? Tattva Viveka prakaram. So, tattva, what is tattva? I spoke. Reality, viveka. Discrimination, discernment. And prakaram, method. So, what shall we explain? We shall explain tattva viveka prakaram, the method to determine reality. What's your question going to be now? How many questions can you form out of that one statement? What is reality? And I'm determining what? What to what? This, because to determine means there's 2 things now. Okay? So you need to think like this. You immediately need to start asking questions, and then these questions will be covered. And then, why should we listen to this method called, what is it called? Prakara. So why should I listen? Because moksha sadhana bhutam. Because it is a means to, it is a sadhana, a means to moksha. That's why I should listen. Meaning the text clarifies, Tattva Bodha text, number 1, what liberation is. What does it mean to say liberation? It's such a vague word that flies around. So it specifically points out what it is and what it's not. So there's no errors. That means one cannot now go around, I'm liberated, but they're just having this bubble, the personal bubble flying about. So it corrects that problem. And 2, not only does it say what liberation is and what it's not, but how to liberate myself here and now. Not tomorrow, at some other point, at some other time, with some other event, but here while we're doing it in class. So we're not, now using this as some kind of scholarly, let's talk about. This is about the subject. How does the subject get liberated? And to whom is this text given? For an adhikari, of course, because an adhikari has opened the book, remember? They're now reading the book. Why? Because they have gone through Anubandha Chatushtaya. So they're now already interested. So it is for an adhikari. For that one, we are prescribing a method to determine the reality. Not for a non-adhikari or a person that is still consumed with money, with wealth, with status, with fame, with family, but for adhikari specifically. And what is an adhikari? Who is an adhikari? One who is desirous of liberation. What else is an adhikari? How else do you rephrase that? Moksha we said, yeah.
The one who wants to realize self.
Wants to realize the self. Also, who is? What is the word Anubandha Chatushtaya? Fourfold Qualifications. So who is an adhikari? The one who is?
Endowed with the full desire.
One who is qualified. Qualified for what? To pursue Tattva Viveka prakaram. To pursue the method of discriminating reality. How does one become an adhikari? Like, what is an adhikari? Qualified for mumukshu. But how does one become an adhikari who is fully qualified for pursuing this knowledge?
Desire.
Answer: Sadhana Chatushtaya. Okay. It is a desire because there is nothing but willingness to pursue. So, fourfold qualifications or fourfold sadhana qualifications. So this means the adhikari who is pursuing moksha has to be endowed with Sadhana Chatushtaya, fourfold qualifications, and that would then qualify one as a true adhikari. So what is your question going to be now? Fourfold qualifications. So I need to know them, right? Because then I am a adhikari. Until we know them, I don't know if I'm an adhikari or not. So we need to find out. So if we translate this verse, we would say, for an adhikari who is endowed with Sadhana Chatushtaya, we shall expound the method, which is Tattva Viveka prakaram, to help them determine the reality, which will lead to moksha. Again, listen to the statement. I'm going to ask you to extract 3 questions out of what I just said. An adhikari is the one who is endowed with Sadhana Chatushtaya. For that one, we shall expound the method called Tattva Viveka prakaram in order to determine the reality, which would lead to moksha. Ask me some questions out of what I just said.
So what kind of
What are the
doubts?
fourfold qualifications?
Good. What is Sadhana Chatushtaya? Number 1, we need to know. What's the second question? What is?
Reality.
Tattva Bodha.
Excellent, Lloyd. Okay, I need to know Sadhana Chatushtaya. I need to know what is Tattva Viveka. What am I discerning? What from what? And what else?
What is moksha?
Excellent. What is moksha? So 3 questions have been formed. Number 1, what is Sadhana Chatushtaya? 2, what is Tattva? What is the method? What is this method called Tattva Viveka Prakara? What is it? And 3, what is moksha? So these 3 parts will be, or is how this book is structured. So this means the first section of the book is Sadhana Chatushtaya. The second section of the book is Tattva, the actual method, Tattva Viveka Prakaram. And the last section, the part that we all want to know is what is moksha and what is not moksha. Okay, so this means you can see how beautiful the order is. We don't just now go straight into moksha. Okay, let me see. There's no cheating. So I have to first go through a very careful step process until by the time I come to the 3rd stage, I am perfectly clear and there's no room for errors. Otherwise, the person, if they don't get the 2nd section or the 1st section, then they totally do not understand, or they mix it up and they live in this bubble, a self-created bubble all their life. And they call this, I am beyond this world, I am enlightened, and all these funny notions start to develop. Usually in the spiritual world, you go to a satsang, and what's the first topic? Highest knowledge. The books that the readers read, they're like the talks with Ramana Maharishi, excellent book. But what is this talks with Ramana Maharishi? What is moksha? The last. Right? So in other words, the person reads all this high knowledge, but there's no means to arrive, there's no means to replicate, there's no means to understand what that means. So what do? They start to glorify the person who is speaking about moksha, as though they have it, and I'm so far away from that now I'm just listening. I need to continue listening for years. But why do I listen for years? Because the very person has not taught me. Am I qualified to listen? Do I need to go back into the world first and do some worldly duties, maybe karma yoga, or get married or have children and mature up? And if I've done that, then what is the actual method to arrive to where Mr. or Mrs. Liberated is? Okay. So this means all of these stages have to be in the precise order, otherwise everything goes wrong. And Tattva Bodha has no room for error, so it's a very precise text. Now, next section, we will get into what? What's the first section of the book? Sadhana Chatushtaya. So the fourfold qualifications. Sadhana Chatushtayam Kim Nitya-Anitya Viveka Iha Mutrartha Phala Bhoga Viragaha Shamadhi Shatka Sampattihi Mumukshutvam Cheti. Fourfold qualifications. Okay. So we can split this into Sadhana Chatushtayam Kim. Kim means what? So what is Sadhana Chatushtaya? And then gives you 4 answers. Number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So the way the text works, it's going to obviously now ask, what is this, what is this, what is this, and what is this? Okay. So first of all, Sadhana Chatushtayam Kim. We are now in the first line. What, instead of just saying what is Sadhana Chatushtaya, you can elaborate. You can say, what qualifications should I have? Who's this I? Us, that we're going through now. What qualifications should we have to be the right person for this knowledge to take place? Which is supposed to provide the highest benefit, which is supposed to give me clarity. What qualities should I have? That means qualities we need to know. Now, what happens if you have insufficient qualities?
You go away from it.
Not always. If I do not have sufficient qualities, then I will stay in class or continue listening to Vedanta for years, but I will get what's called paroksha jnanam. In other words, I will get indirect knowledge of what it's talking about. Paroksha jnana means through someone else's eyes. Only Buddha is enlightened. Only the great rishis are liberated. And me, I am just talking about someone else's liberation. You see that distinction? But the one that's talking is not that. They're like far, so this is big. So they're like a scholar. They're talking about others. That's paroksha jnanam. The vision of oneness means I am free. I am not bound to this world. I am not this body. I am not this mind. And yet the person is over-exaggerating in their rationale, protect and stock up, etc. So in other words, it's going to convert into the same behavior as most of the society by being stuck in paroksha jnanam. Whereas aparoksha jnanam, this means if I have proper sadhana chatushtaya, if I have all the qualities ticked, then that leads to aparoksha jnana. In other words, direct knowledge. In other words, no matter what happens, it does not affect the self, because the self is ever free from the world, the body, from everything. So there's a huge implication of what it means to say one is free. It's not just about an intellectual statement. Yeah, that's true. I understand what it means free. And yet, in real life, same behaviors like anyone else. So aparoksha jnana means not through someone else's eyes, but through my own eyes. In other words, it is so. It is the fact. It is a reality for the very person that is. The very person that is the self. Now, let's go into adhikari qualification number 1. So we're going to now start speaking about what 4 qualifications should an adhikari have. Nitya-Anitya Viveka kaha Nitya vastvekam brahma tadvyatiriktam sarvam anityam ayam eva nitya viveka. Good. So remember what is Sadhana Chatushtaya, and it had 4 parts. So what are we now looking at? The first part. It says Viveka. You see that? So we ask, what is Viveka? Viveka is ability of the intellect to discriminate. Ability of the intellect to categorize. To identify differences. To compare. To differentiate. All of that belongs to what? The intellect. Now, of course, what's the intellect and what's the mind, we will speak later about. I will tell us the difference. For now, just think of intellect as the mind, but specifically, I will say the intellect, because later on we will refine the difference between the mind and the intellect. Okay. So let's think of some examples of the intellect. What are some gross examples that the intellect engages in to discriminate? Suppose color. What is red? What is blue? Easy, right? We can all do that. What is warm and what is cold? Easy. What is up? What is down?
What is beneficial? What is detrimental?
That is subtle now. You have to be a lot more sophisticated for that. What is, give me one more gross Viveka activity.
What is big and small?
What is big and small? Am I hungry or am I not hungry? Easy. You don't need much intelligence for that. It's just so inbuilt there. How about a little bit more subtle? Well, actually, it's not that subtle. What is a tree versus what actually it is for something? What is a tree and what is a pole, right? Right? Sometimes it looks the same from a distance, right? So you need to be closer. But some people from that same distance, their viveka is a lot sharper, so they don't make that same mistake. So this means even from that standpoint, gross intellect can sometimes falter on the basis of not having enough sensory data to tell us what exactly it is. How about, am I cheerful or gloomy? Oh, yeah? Yeah. How about, is someone else cheerful or gloomy? Is that gross or is that more subtle? That's a lot more subtle, because not all of us can tell, what's wrong with you? Nothing. No, you look very, no, I'm just peaceful. So that's now subtle. That means it's a little bit harder. What about a dangerous dog or a friendly dog? Gross. Okay. Now let's focus on the subtles. We talked about, how about, is it safe to cross the road? Mixture, right? Subtle, gross mixture. However, sometimes still, you need speed calculation, right? Sometimes people, they will, make a mistake and then the car will hit them. That means the viveka has faltered. Therefore, it made a mistake. But for us, it's common sense. So how about empathizing with another person? Yeah, that's very subtle. That's actually an ability that most of us still develop, growing up as adults. How about, is this morally wrong or is this right? Definitely subtle. Sometimes our politicians actually cannot generally tell. They've mixed up what is right and what is wrong. So that also requires, what about, is it appropriate to speak right now or just to hold back? Subtle, yeah. Sometimes a person will just, in the middle of a conversation, something that's inappropriate, and you will say, it just doesn't fit at this place. So this means they haven't developed this subtler viveka.
So could you say then that the easy ones are where you're trusting, how much can I trust my senses, my five senses, to make the decision? In other words, if you're short-sighted, your eyes are a bit weak, then that's the decision where you try to cross the road and you haven't got your glasses on and you can't see the cars coming. So that's the weakness of the decision.
Of the senses.
Yeah, from the senses. Whereas the more subtle is where you go beyond the senses into the mind, and you're actually dealing with the thoughts and emotions as part of the decision, of the discrimination.
Well, they're never separate. They're always working.
Well, even if the senses are weak.
Well, no, because the five senses aren't going to give you information regarding whether you're going to be empathetic towards another person.
Well, you need to first see the person in order to evaluate if they're, if they're feeling something. And my eyes need to be open, and then I need to determine on the basis of subtler gestures or some, that small vibe that I'm getting. Yeah. So I need to have my senses to what? Use my viveka for both gross and subtle. Yeah. Without the senses, nothing's possible. Senses need to be working.
So if you're using discrimination on memory, for instance.
On what?
Memory?
Yeah.
Then how do the senses come into that?
Well, because the memory will falter sometimes, and we think it's right, so we have to use our, discrimination on the basis of, well, has my memory recall been good previously? So on the basis of that, can I put 100% viveka or trust in this or not? Well, not really, because my memory sometimes is inaccurate. So this means I have to include all of these components, and that also requires what? Viveka. So this means to remember something and to know how confident, how accurate this is also requires Viveka. That means what kind of Viveka? Has this kind of situation in the past been historically perfectly recalled, or has it been manipulated, has it been changed, has it been potentially incorrect? So I use that information also. That means I assess my past using Viveka. See, some people don't do this. They just, the first thing that comes out of their mouth or their recall is absolute. That's it. So this means Viveka is constantly working in the background for someone who is on a lot more subtler level of this Viveka versus someone who's at the gross level. Just, it's either black or white. That's all there is to it. Yeah. Now, what about counting pebbles? You know when they give you like a big pot and then they lay out maybe 50 pebbles on there? Some people can just look at those pebbles, right? And you ask them how many are there? And they just give you such a great accurate number. And then it's your try, and then you go, and then you think there's a hesitation there. Why is that? Because my viveka in the aspect of counting or in the aspect of recognition of numbers or individual parts is not as sophisticated as it is for someone else who instantly identifies 45 and it's actually 50. Whereas you go, oh, 70? Right, it's way off. So this means viveka applies in every single aspect of our life, all the time. Should I come here or should I not? Should I be careful or should I not? How much should I be careful? Am I being too careful? Right? Am I taking it too seriously or should I lower my seriousness? All of this is viveka. And then what does Tattva Bodha require us? It requires us to use this very viveka that I'm talking about to the absolute highest level possible. Even higher than the scientists will use. Why higher? Because the scientists use their viveka for what? The world. Whereas we're using our viveka for something that is, what's the word? Behind. That means for something that has no characteristics of its own. So we will say, what is the highest ability to exercise this viveka? The answer will now come. Nitya-Anitya Vastu Viveka. Nitya-Anitya Vastu Viveka. So, Vastu means, the word Vastu means reality. In other words, everything that is included. That means nothing is excluded when you say Vastu. You can't say now, what about? Because Vastu also includes that. So when I say Vastu, what am I talking about? The whole, the total. So what is Nitya-Anitya Vastu Viveka? I'm now answering this question, the first one. Answer, differentiation between Vastu, which means reality, which is Nitya and Anitya. So now we create a column. One column is Nitya, another column is Anitya. We can say Nitya is eternal. Anitya is ephemeral. Ephemeral means short-lasting. It's not forever. Nitya, permanent. Anitya, impermanent. Nitya, changeless. Anitya, changing. Nitya, timeless. Anitya, time-bound. Has a beginning, has an end. Nitya, infinite. Anitya, finite. Nitya, limitless. Anitya, limited. Nitya, complete. Anitya, incomplete, partial. Nitya, imperishable. Anitya, perishable. So we will look at these words and understand what they all mean. They will have more meaning as we go through. So now we will say, what is this distinction of Tattva Viveka? What are we now differentiating? Two parts. First one is Nitya Vastvekam Brahma. Or in other words, Nitya Vastu Ekam Brahma. You probably read Brahma, Brahman, Eka, one, Nitya, we just said, permanent, and Vastu, everything. In other words, what is the distinction here? Nitya, so you put two parts. First part is Nitya Vastu Ekam Brahma. The one Brahman alone is Nitya. In brackets, permanent. And the second that we're differentiating is Tad Vyatiriktam Sarvam Anityam. So, Anityam we just talked about, impermanent. Sarvam, everything. In other words, everything else other than that, tad that, so everything else other than that is anityam, is impermanent. So what are we differentiating? Nitya vastu ekam brahman and tad vyatiriktam sarvam anityam. In other words, nitya and anitya. So the metaphor for this is, just to give some context, is if you have a gold, for gold is, for example, permanent. We'll just open a possibility to see how this is possible. Gold is permanent, whereas all of the ornaments out of which they borrow this gold, are all impermanent. So the one content which is the truth of all of these impermanent, anitya ornaments, that one truth, that one nitya, is the same in and through all forms, in this case all ornaments. Meaning that the ornament is the gold, but the gold is not the ornament. Think about that. The ornament has to be the gold, because wherever there is ornament, it is only because of the gold. So I need to borrow the content out of which I am made of in order to claim myself as a ring, to claim myself as a pendant, to claim myself as a necklace. So the ornament is always the gold, but can you say that the gold is the ornament? Why not? Excellent. It is so much. So if I say that the gold is just the ring, I would say, well, why don't you say it is also the bangle? Right? So in other words, to call it one is to ignore all of the other infinite forms of ornaments which are also made out of that one gold. So I can never say that the gold is anything, because then I'm excluding what is obvious. And what is obvious? That everything else is also made out of that same gold. So I cannot claim ownership of the gold and say it is limited to one single form, because the truth is it is not. It is obvious that it is not. So this means that because that one gold is not limited to one single ornament, but all ornaments are dependent on the one gold. So one gold is independent, it remains free of all of the forms, all of the shapes, all of the names and forms which we attribute constantly. And despite us attributing and calling this ornament ugly, dangerous, beautiful, kind, compassionate, angry, really, smart, not that smart, all of that is pervaded by the one same gold. And the one that's calling it that is also pervaded by the one same gold. So all there is the one same content from which the world of ornaments which we attribute names and forms, and we deal with in different ways according to the nature of the ornament in order to transact. But everything is still the one same gold. And if the ornament, for example, breaks, you take a hammer, is the ornament still that ornament? No. So I used to glorify it and say ring, wow, ring. So to have a golden watch means everything in life. It's all about popularity. To have a golden pendant, that's why I'm living here. And then I destroy it, and all of that is gone in one instant. But what is still the case? What is still the reality of what I was depending on for dear life, what I was holding on for dear life? The same gold. But now, because it is not what it looks like, isn't it interesting? We no longer give any value to it, even though it's still the same gold. So in other words, we do what? We give reality to anitya, and in reality that anitya is dependent on nityam. So in other words, as long as the anitya remains a particular shape and size and form which matters to me, I'm good. And when it breaks down, then problems come. But the reality is, whether it exists or it doesn't exist, whether it is in my possession or not, it is still, or however it looks like, or what status it has for me, or doesn't have, it is still the gold. So this means, suppose you have two options here. One is a necklace and one is a ring. And then what does usually a buyer do? They all rush for one or the other. And they will actually fight for one or the other, right? Because I have no value in the ring, and or you have no value in the necklace. But we're fighting over the one same content. So we can break the ornament, but the content always remains the same. So in summary, gold is the reality of all ornaments. So does this mean that the ornament is ever separate from the gold? So this means when we say Nitya-Anitya, does this mean that Anitya is some different world or Nitya is some different world? So Nitya-Anitya are always together. They're never apart. They're never separate. Just like a golden ornament, which we call a name and a form, and the very content, which is the truth of that ornament. So in the same way, the world that we speak of, the very world that we live in and that we give value to, is just like this gold ornament, but with many forms. We have Lloyd golden ornament, we have Rani golden ornament, we have XYZ golden ornament, we have house golden ornament, we have different countries golden ornament. So all of them are the one same content, but different names and forms that we attribute onto them. So the important thing to understand is, listen to the statement, it is not that the world is impermanent, but behind all worldly things, there is a permanent truth. So you cannot now say, well, the world is impermanent, Is the ornament ever separate from the gold? No. So it is not that the world is impermanent, but in all of these worldly effects that we experience, behind all of them, there is the one permanent, unchanging truth. And that truth is nityam. Another way to look at it. Objects are impermanent, but the reality behind these objects is permanent. So now if you say that the ornament is impermanent, can you really say that the ornament is impermanent? You can from the aspect of what? Name and form. But if your understanding is there is only gold, then what is there to say about impermanence? Because there's only what? There's only permanence. If it's one shape or the other, it still remains the essence. It still remains the one same truth that was there when the ornament was as a ring. It's still there when that same ornament is now a pendant or a necklace or something else. So the truth being permanent is always true. Whereas names and forms are constantly modifying according to their use or their form. And when I say that, I'll talk about what modifies Nitya into the seemingly dualistic world. We'll speak about this much later. And also, why would you want to practice this Viveka that we're speaking of? Why would you want to exercise Viveka? For
moksha.
Well, specifically for Nitya-Anitya.
Plus two.
In other words, I need to exercise my Viveka to be able to discriminate Nitya-Anitya. So now if I say, what is Tattva Viveka prakaram? What is the method of Tattva Viveka? What do you say? The method is?
Discriminating between Nitya and Anitya.
That's it. You hear that answer? That's 100% correct. And also, so that you protect your mind. Because if I don't use my Viveka, where is the mind going to naturally go on to? Sense objects. That's the nature of the mind. The news. It just wants to see the news over and over again. It cannot help itself. It knows that it heard the news yesterday, and yet somehow it has the need to see the news again. And it knows that even if I turn on the TV, I'm going to see the exact same thing that I saw yesterday, and it still does it. It cannot help itself. So why do I use my Viveka? So that I do not fall for constant worldly distractions. Because the reality is the distractions are simply the reality of this world, when they're not the case. And even if everything seems okay on a gross level, then there is what? There is that subtler, there's the mental, psychological problems. And they're a lot harder to detect. Why? Because we constantly distract ourselves. Travel packages, going to friends, socializing, just food, luxury. In other words, when is a pandemic not occurring? We're only giving reality to a physical pandemic. What about a mental, emotional pandemic that we don't see? It's kind of like going up to the ocean and you go, oh, what do we do when we go to the ocean? We go, beautiful. Now, why do we say that, knowing if you look underneath the ocean, what are you going to see?
Sharks.
Trillions, billions of tons of junk, of rubbish that we human beings have contributed through our own selfishness, through our own greed, through our own lack of responsibility, and yet we ignore that. We know it's there, so what do? We just look at one side and go, it's all good. But underneath lies what? The reality of what is actually the case. So where is there a difference between a physical pandemic and a mental pandemic? They're always there, except we give more reality to one, like the ocean is beautiful, but we ignore completely the other. So there's no news here. It's just a news that is on a more grosser level. Now, what about those who are not exposed to this Nitya-Anitya Vastu Viveka? Is there any hope for them? There is, because if you think about how anyone's journey happens, we all start off as curious. We start to see there's not much in these worldly things that I'm following or chasing, and it becomes to be a real burden, right? It's like, I've gone through this, the relationships, I've gone through money, but I'm still feeling empty. So everyone goes through this sooner or later. There's no exceptions to this. And this causes the person then to start looking elsewhere. And that's when their Viveka goes from what? From gross to subtle. And what is Tattva Bodha requiring? You to have the subtlest of the subtlest Viveka. Therefore, how do we start? Very gross. And then through our own Viveka of grossness, we realize there's not much there. There's not much essence in these things. And then we start to look for something much subtler. This is called the spirituality has now become my new world, my new pursuit. And then through spirituality, you hear words like self, Brahman, consciousness, and then you go to a satsang and then you get more information. Eventually, through hearing people speaking left and right, you come to the right place and you learn about Nitya-Anitya Vastu Viveka. You learn about the real thing. So there is hope for everyone. In other words, everyone goes through the same process. So, discrimination, done. Next topic. Adhikari, qualification number 2. Dispassion. So we can now ask, after I practice this viveka ongoingly, that means I'm discerning one from the other, what's the natural byproduct of that practice?
Detachment.
Excellent. And that detachment is dispassion. That means I don't see so much value in these things anymore. But how do you arrive to that place to say, I don't see so much value in this anymore? What have you done before? Discriminating. So viveka is the start. It leads naturally into dispassion, vairagya, which we'll now go into. Viragah kaha iha swarga bhogeshu ichara hityam. See this viragah? That's called dispassion. Another name, more popular, is vairagyam. So we will stick with vairagyam because it's a lot more used than viragah. So it says, what is dispassion? Okay, so what is dispassion? And then this whole line on top. Absence of enjoyment in the world or in future heaven. See swarga? Swarga means heaven. That means absence of enjoyment, trying to grasp on more travel packages, please, one more tour, one more, etc. Absence of that. In where? In both the world and in future worlds. Because there's also, we have the Karma Kanda section in the Vedas we spoke about. And there are rituals. And if you do those rituals, they're supposed to give you what? Swarga after death. In other words, this person with this passion has gone past both the enjoyments in this world. I've had enough of enjoying myself. It's childish. It's just enjoying, chasing for sensual experiences. And also in the future. So they stop depending on future events to enjoy themselves. So this means, what is this passion? I'm not going to waste my life pursuing this. What is this? Whatever the case is. I'm not going to waste my life pursuing one more business, one more relationship, one more activity, one more project, one more, etc.
So this is the process of exhausting your vasanas, then?
Yeah, and it starts with how? Viveka. It leads into this passion. So viveka supports this passion, and this passion reinforces viveka. So I'm not going to waste my life in one more enjoyment because I know it's going to last me a short time. It's not going. The amount of work required to get enjoyment, and the actual time of enjoyment is never justified. Did you notice that? How much we have to work for something, and then if we do get it, how short it lasts. So the amount of work that I put in and the amount of results that I get back is absolutely out of proportion. So the person starts to see that this is the reality, and then they go, it is just not worth it, right? And then the whole life is going to go into just pursuing more. So then they say, I want something higher, please. I'm tired of these gross things in this world of attention. Everyone's trying to steal my attention constantly. Everyone wants to speak to me. Everyone wants to, wants to engage and wants my attention. No. In other words, what is this passion? Learning to say no. Why do I say no? Because my vision is on, I want something higher. That is a quality of an adhikari, a mumukshu. And for example, a teenager develops this passion for toys. Yeah? And what happens after that? Do they just, that's it? Or do they find passion for something else? So, good. So the traditional way is I drop my dispassion for one thing only to develop my passion for something else. So I haven't really dropped my dispassion. It's only done it because I found a passion for something else. So for a teenager, I've dropped my passion for toys, found my passion in computers, dropped my passion for computers, developed passion for girls, dropped passion for girls, developed passion for a wife, dropped passion for a wife, now develop passion for something else, right? So this is an ongoing process of passion, dispassion. Passion, dispassion. This is a worldly, common person that's still trying to figure out how to get rid of these passions, which can be a real strain. They can really pull a person and they have no control because they're just interested in the world. And what kind of dispassion is Tattva Bodha? Sarvam anitya vastu. So if I say sarvam, means what? Everything. Anitya, impermanent. Vastu, everything. So everything that is impermanent. It doesn't matter if it's the greatest pleasure in the world. Still, it's anitya. So what kind of dispassion does an adhikari have to pursue Tattva Bodha? Dispassion for the entire world.
Including dispassion for dispassion.
Yeah, including being free of, well, you need, passion for moksha. That's the last passion that the person has before even that is dropped.
But the thing is, you can get to the point where you're so focused on being dispassionate that you can actually get sucked into that as a
I don't know what that feels like. Yeah, good. Become cold and insensitive to the environment. Yeah, very focused, very one point.
To do that, a false passion.
Yeah, anything can be done in the extreme.
It, but you know what I mean.
What else is Vairagya? Absence of raga dvesha. Likes and dislikes. This is a new term we're introducing in session 3. So likes and dislikes just means I have a like for one thing and I'm going to pursue that like even if my dislike is actually better for me. So this means, yes, sure, there's other options, but I don't really care. All I care is what I like. So the person ends up chasing always what they've already done before. But their life is obviously not working out, so if they just keep chasing for the same things, their life is going to continue in the exact same trajectory. So likes and dislikes, like on Facebook or YouTube, it's all about thumbs up or thumbs down. That just it demonstrates how we all have likes and dislikes for different things. You can have sometimes the greatest inspirational speech in this world, and you'll be surprised people still give that a thumbs down. Like, how is this possible? So these likes and dislikes cause a person to be subjective. That means they have put there in their own spin, their own need to generate an opinion and make it so. That is the reality. That's how it is. So if I have an absence of likes and dislikes, that is called objectivity. Objectivity means, suppose, I'll give you an experiment. What is objectivity? Suppose that your son or daughter, suppose you have a child and they're in a school. And the principal calls and he says, there was a fire in school and we believe your son was in that room that burned. Right? People perished. Now, how do you as a father or a mother respond to that when you get that call?
Shock.
Oh my goodness, right? Yeah, totally paralyzed. Emotional. Can't think. Just like, that sinking feeling, like in one moment life is just sunk. All meaning has lost. No more meaning in life. And then the principal calls, after 5 minutes later of, it's like an eternity to be 5 minutes in that state, says, we just discovered that your son fortunately was in the bathroom and he's not, he's fine. What happens immediately? Yeah. So what happens immediately? I went from an emotional, subjective state. It was all about what? Me, my world, my son, my family. What am I going to do? How I'm going to deal with this? What happens next in my life? Oh no, me. Into, wow, what can I do? What can I do for others? How can I help? How can I serve? Is there anything that I can do about this? Is there any power that I have which I can use to help others? So it went from subjectivity equals what? Me. Equals hoarding, equals stockpiling, equals not thinking of others, to objectivity, which means I start to remove this person out of the picture and I start to use this person to what? Help others. In other words, I'm now becoming a what? An instrument of the Lord through which He can work through, and this person can be of service to the world. How? Through objectivity, which means through raga, dvesha, absence, which comes through what? Vairagya, which comes through Viveka.
Can you say it's the same like seeing the world as reality? I mean, like, what now? I mean, seeing things as they are, like in Buddhism. No?
Yeah.
You see something as it is. So not putting something else on top of it.
That's another way to put it. Yeah, yeah. And you got to be very strong, not very cautious, mindful not to do that. Yeah, because we go instantly into this, put myself above, and then I become paralyzed.
But even that's not enough. When you see the world as it is, there is a perception with vision that you see.
Yeah.
So you might not put the opinion on top of it, but
Yeah.
there's a vision already there with a perception.
There is a
Of
perception.
how you see the world.
There is.
How he sees the world.
Yeah.
From,
So
from
that
your
alone is
conditionings
affected.
and your memories,
Yeah, and that's what a person has to just keep developing this passion, because this passion brings in rationality. That means I'm starting to think about how is this affecting other people. It's not just about me here, because that's how everyone else is thinking. So if we all think like this, what do we have? We have discord in the society. We have antisocial behavior. We have all sorts of problems that you go, oh my goodness, what happened here? So all of these things are there in potential the moment what happens? The moment my raga, dvesha does not get satisfied. That's when all problems come out. The society is very happy when raga, dvesha, when likes and dislikes are being satisfied. That's when we're all having this Australian spirit. We're all friendly people. The moment those raga, dvesha becomes compromised, immediately you see the real potential that was hiding behind this friendly face all along. This is why I never give either reality to a happy person or a sad person. You just don't know what is going on in the thought process. You really see the person when the raga, dvesha gets potentially compromised, because then we see how firmly the person is established in whether it is aparoksha dhyanam or paroksha dhyanam. That's when it really comes out. Yeah, so this means these are indicators of a person's firmness in this knowledge. Now, more importantly, what is Vairagya not? Vairagyam, this passion, is not leaving the world. It is not abandoning anything or anyone. It is not abruptly just putting an end to something which clearly should not be ended that abruptly. Vairagya is not about stopping a business because the person now says, well, it's just all money. That's got nothing to do with Vairagya. Vairagya just means I put things in their right place and I don't add more value than they deserve. The job has a certain value. It provides security in terms of the world. The knowledge has a certain value. It provides a sense of fullness of one's self. But I don't put, okay, now let's go full into this, or let's go full into the world. So this means a constant balance between both of them. Now, how do you know if you're in balance? If you look at evaluate your life, you go through a little self-evaluation process. You say, how are things going with my family? Is there any conflicts? Okay, maybe. Okay, so let me go and resolve that. How are things with my sense of, do I feel full? Not really. Okay, so why is that? So then person starts to investigate. They have a self-inquiry process with themselves, and they start to look at their relationship with themselves, with their spouse, with their children, with their parents, with their business customers, with their employer, with their employees, with their colleagues, with their aunties, cousins, etc. And they remove every conflict or every resistance that is there. Because that means what? I have not developed vairagyam towards that specific object. And what do we just establish now? If vairagya is not there, subjectivity, which removes my rationality, then that causes what? Selfishness or greed. I cannot think for myself or for the other. So this means I need to look at my entire life, all of my relationships, my customers, and if there's any resistance to anything, then work on that specific point. How can I see this in a different light so I'm not so attached to it, so I'm not so passionate towards it working out in the way that I want it to work out? Sometimes we want our people that we're close to respond exactly the way that we prefer. But they usually don't, and that causes what? Agitation in us. So this means we become dependent on the world for our own sense of well-being. So Vairagyam is putting things in their right place. Okay, now let's finish with this. There are 3 types of Vairagya. We'll be talking about dispassion, okay? Let's see what kind of dispassion I really have. The first one is called Smashana Vairagya. Smashana means burial ground. Burial ground, funeral. Now, what kind of dispassion is funeral dispassion? What do you think this means?
End of something.
Yeah, end of something. So when we're at a funeral, we have this called Smashana Vairagya. Why? Because we see the death of another human body, and then we go, wow, so my life also is going to end like this. I have dispassion temporarily for my life, for all the things that I've been holding on to. So it's a very short dispassion, but it is dispassion nevertheless. It comes to all people who are there standing at a funeral, looking at the death of another body. They start to think, wow, so life indeed is impermanent. I haven't thought about it this way, but now that I've seen this dead body, I can really see that this body is not invincible as much as I thought. This body is also going to go. Wow. So everyone starts to think like this. However, the moment they leave the funeral, go for a coffee,
Sandwiches.
right? It is over. Like nothing ever happened. So Smashana Vairagya is the weakest Vairagya, but it is still enough to snap the person out of their thinking that this body is invincible, it's going to last forever, right? This means dispassion arises when? When I see the death of another person. That's called Smashana Vairagya. Now we have second type, Madhyama. Madhyama always means middle. Madhyama Vairagya. Madhyama Vairagya means it's a mixture. This is a very common one. It's very subtle. For example, we say, you know, I'm not interested in the world. No, I understand. I know, I'm not interested. But I'm really interested in my family. That matters to me a lot. Right? So, no, not the world, but there's always something there. No, I don't need anything. No, that's fine. I'm fine. But man, do I want respect? Do I want to be acknowledged? Right? So it's very subtle.
So
right.
giving them, not craving the material things, but
yeah, very hard to see. At least the material you can see easily. But this is like no. I've been in this world for a long time. I'm good. But I like my wife who has been telling me they love me every once in a while. You know? Right. So there's something I'm still attached to. Now I'm not saying now you're not supposed to feel that, because there's a human aspect to this. So I'm not going to say now one's supposed to be like so invincible they don't need anything. But I'm saying just from an aspect of Madhyama Vairagya, I don't need one thing, but there is secretly something that I need. And I usually don't reveal what that is because, it's personal. I don't need to tell that. So that's Madhyama Vairagya. And this causes often a mix, a tearing. Like, I don't know should I come, should I not come? Should I pursue this or should I not pursue this? So the person in Madhyama stays in this push and pull. They don't know, they cannot make up their minds. What should I go for? And what is good for me, what is not good for me? So they in this limbo state, in this twilight zone. And this causes the person to get stuck. They cannot move forward because they're exercising Vairagya one day, but the next day, they suddenly find this need, I need a little bit of, love. I want to be told that I matter here in this world. So then that, becomes now important. And they go back into the spirituality. So there's constant shift. And you know how the mind is. The only way you can get anything done properly is by constantly focusing on one thing at a time. So if it's constantly in the background, like a pendulum going from one side to the other, that's going to, as though, reduce any potential of me putting my full effort and focus into Tattva Viveka, prakaram, which is between Nitya and Anitya. Now imagine this, doing Nitya-Anitya Viveka while I'm thinking I need some acknowledgement in the world. What is acknowledgement? anitya, right? So this means the viveka has to be so sharp, dispassion has to be so strong that I don't fall into this pattern of a little bit of the world and a little bit of this. Now, what is strong Vairagya? What is the strongest kind of dispassion that you can have? The third one is called Tivra. Tivra just means strong. Tivra Vairagya. This means nothing in this world can pull my focus away from what I know to be the most important, moksha. I'm willing to sacrifice my entire life for this goal because I understand it to be so important, so worthwhile, knowing that this body has been reincarnated over and over and over again, and here it is one more time going, well, I've got Madhyama Vairagya, that's okay. I've got some Smashana Vairagya, that's okay. I'll pull through those two. After some time, finally develops strong dispassion. This means no matter what, this is the only thing that matters in life, and I'm willing to sacrifice everything for it. Now, the moment I said sacrifice, did I now say, what did we say earlier? What is Vairagyam not? Leaving? Not leaving family, world. So even if I say sacrifice everything for it, the mind now doesn't go, okay, now let's leave everything that I have, all those people that I love. It just means very strong. That means the life is very focused towards moksha only, because the person understands the implications of it. What is this Tivra Vairagya? The mind is so strong, it cannot get tempted by worldly desires, by worldly temptations. So the person is constantly focused, self-knowledge, self-knowledge, self-knowledge. Not just now, but next year, 2 years from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And the person has this clarity that this is going to be, this is my life. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.